What will you do when your money works for you? Welcome to the Tech Girl Financial Podcast with your hosts, Victor and Kim Gaxiola. From the home office in California, here is Victor and Kim.
It's been an exciting couple of days, Kim. And, one of the reasons why we started the podcast was to have a medium by which we can address current events and things that we think are really important and impact our clients and the people we serve.
That's right. There is never a dull moment out there, just when you think it could get boring or just when you think what's going to happen next. Something comes from left field.
And a bank shuts down. And then another bank shuts down.
Oh, man. It has been crazy. And there is so much noise out there. I will tell you, my inbox is full of so many different stories of why this happened. So guess what? We're not going to go through it.
No, we're not going to go into any real details because I think there's plenty of material out there that'll tell you why Silicon Valley Bank had its issues. And then, of course, over the weekend, the response from the Fed and also from the Treasury Department. So that's all well documented. But, whenever there's big news, whenever things happen, I think you and I have a unique, well, it's not a unique ability, but we sit there and we start digesting this information. We start looking at this content and immediately start thinking about the impact that it's having on client portfolios. And then, of course, what changes in the landscape, especially in this community.
Absolutely. So I want to really start talking about the community because we are almost in the heart of it here in Morgan Hill. We're close to Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. We were raised in Silicon Valley. And, I tell everybody Silicon Valley Bank seems like the godfather of the Silicon Valley and the tech community and the founder and startup community out here. So it is sad. We do know people that have worked or continue to work at Silicon Valley Bank. So our hearts do go out. It's a scary time for them. And there is a lot of unpredictability out there with the job market, with the startup community as well. I think if I wanted to say anything about that situation, it's become very apparent that it's a really risky world right now to be a startup, and the venture capital money is not coming in as quickly as it used to. And so that means there may be some turnover and layoffs in that community as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of it. It over the course of the weekend, as the stories were coming out of the different organizations and startups that were going to be affected by the fact that Silicon Valley Bank was having the issues and challenges that it was the real stories of individuals. I mean, companies not being able to make payroll or the risk associated with payroll. And it got down to being, families and individuals as opposed to these faceless, venture capitalists or faceless companies that were being supported by the bank.
It's so true. I'm so glad that people were telling their stories. These founders were telling their stories because they're hardworking individuals. Mm-hmm. They're working for their family, but they're also working for multiple families of the employees that work for them. Mm-hmm. And, would I have pulled money out? Because I need to protect not only my family, but all of the employees that are working for me. I mean, I can absolutely see why this happened. And it's a struggle. It's a tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of the concern that was kind of surfacing after the events of the week, as, because it happened very quickly, that as Silicon Valley Bank, required the protection of FDIC insurance to come in to protect its depositors, it was that whole fear associated with, what comes next? What's the next shoe to drop? Will this impact larger banks and the entire financial services institutions that are out there that are providing lending?
Yeah, and I want to say that this, to me, doesn't really have the same look, feel, and sound as 2008, 2009. That was a true banking liquidity crisis. Mm-hmm. To me, this looks a lot more like the beginning of the 2000s in the dot-com era.
Yeah, and if you're, hopefully a lot of our listeners will remember, well, they'll remember that. If you're younger listeners, you can just understand that was a tough time. We thought that was it for as far as any real innovation when it comes to the internet and what was going to follow as far as e-commerce. And, now here we are 23 years after all that happened, and things are still thriving as far as internet commerce. You wouldn't have an Amazon today if we had given up after the dot-com bust.
Yeah, I learned a lot during that time period. And, I'm so marked by that period because that was when I started in this business. Mm-hmm. And I remember the big, exciting companies in that time period. It took some of them 10, 15 years to come back to their high water marks. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really mindful of that because the technology companies and stocks have done so well for so long. But we had been saying this for a while now that these companies are probably going to go sideways. I like to say up, down, and sideways, mm-hmm. And end up at the same price. And we saw that in 2022. We saw that actually in 2021 as well, when we started to sell off our internet companies. And then in 2022, we sold our large technology companies. So we've drastically reduced our exposure there, which I'm so happy we did. Mm-hmm. And the conviction was right that was going to go through a tough time. And now we are seeing those, what were forecast back then, and become what is happening today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if I was to say, here we are in 2023, and if there was one word to describe the year so far, has been transition, has been change. And the only thing that I can think that with the Silicon Valley Bank closing its doors and then other banks to follow, or the ones that were protected, is this whole idea of acceleration of something that was already happening. Companies in tech were laying a lot of people off. A lot of the large companies were laying people off. So there was a lot of transition there. And so as you said, that the focus on technology is certainly not what it used to be. And you can expect as we start preparing for a potential recession, that's what they're doing, is a lot of those large companies are tightening the belt. Now you look at the startup community, and it's going to have a tough time for the next, it could be the next 5 to 10 years.
That's right. And I'm so glad we have so many other things to invest in besides technology.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that's why for a lot of the people that have been inquiring and reaching out, and, I think it's a natural knee-jerk reaction when you start seeing news like this. And of course, the headlines are going to be scary. That the first response is, does this affect my portfolio? Am I going to be okay? Are we still on track? Well, this actually makes for a very strong case as to why you want a diversified portfolio, because one sector, yes, it could take a hit, but you've got another 8 to 10, sectors that are not having the same hit. And so on balance, you look at it, you say, yes, maybe on the short term, there be maybe a little instability in one area, but as long as we can isolate it, and as you said, make the moves to reduce the exposure to technology, then you are protecting people from the fallout.
So I want to encourage some of our listeners out there, if they are thinking, what's next? Congratulations. I'm glad you are thinking what's next.
Yeah, let's move on.
Because that is always my opinion, mm-hmm. is after the fallout, it's like, okay, how do I move up from here?
You can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube, right?
No, but we can move forward, and it's crucial to get that planning done and the investment allocations in proper form. Mm-hmm. And so we have some podcasts that we've talked about these themes in the past. So we really want to encourage you to check out our Tech Girl Financial podcast library. There's a couple episodes that I think we should be highlighting here, mm-hmm. because they're very relevant right now. And the first one I would like to think about is the one where we brought in Gary, mm-hmm. from Berkshire. Mm-hmm. And they are one of our companies that we follow for rising dividend stocks. And, I've always liked rising dividend stocks, but after a year like 2022, my love for them goes up. And so I want to take this time to say, there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things to invest in addition to technology, where I think you can find some satisfaction in owning that. Another podcast that I want to bring up is the podcast where we talk about transitions. We realize there's a lot of people that may be in transition with all the moving around that's going on in the technology space and the startup community and throughout the country. And so if you find yourself in a position where you may be moving from one company to another, what do you do with your RSU units? What do you do with your 401k plan? There are so many things to think about. What do you do when you're looking to get that job offer? And how do you negotiate from a strong position? And so these are all topics that we've brought up, and we'll mention them in the show notes.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll include them in the show notes so that you can have a hyperlink to some of these programs. They were recorded last year as part of a kind of a post-pandemic 3-part series on transitions and job changes, but the content is still very relevant. And so the tail end of season 5 was focused on those 3 areas. And incidentally, I was telling Kim earlier, we've been monitoring, some of the ebooks. So our website has a number of different resources, and one of those resources is an ebook. We also recorded another podcast on that ebook, which was really looking at how you take charge of your 401k. Ultimately, people have decisions to make in times of transition, and you want to take advantage of the transition to regain and, if you will, take more control over your finances and the decisions that you make on how you're invested. So we'll include the show notes to both the ebook as well as that ebook podcast. So a lot of them, you're gonna have work to do. I mean, we're giving everybody a lot of homework right now.
But if you don't want to read, you can also just contact us and schedule an appointment. And I think it's a more social way of educating.
Yeah, we're fun. We're nice people.
Absolutely. And that is one thing that we just want to really encourage people to do is remember, we always like to say you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. I mean, one of the most rewarding things in the work that we do is really partner with our clients and partner with the people that we work with, like we've said, to help them make better financial decisions. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was saying, what we find as far as the people that we serve, they're smart, professional people. I mean, they're subject matter experts in the fields that they work in. But when it comes to financial services, they're looking to align themselves with subject matter experts in that space because they recognize the value in saying, hey, 1, they don't want to take the time to do all the research. 2, they don't want to do this alone. They're used to working with coaches and mentors, and I think that's a role that we fill. And then the third thing is they don't want to make a mistake. So they want to get away, want to keep the emotion away from the investing, and they know that we take a much more surgical approach to it because we look at the goals that people have, and then we find the investment vehicles that are more likely to get them to reach those goals.
And they don't have to second guess themselves or their spouses that they're doing the right thing.
They don't have to do that.
It's just, So I always like to say one of the reasons why I like working with women in tech and their families are because a lot of them in management do have a position where they have to delegate things.
Right.
And so this is certainly one of those areas, I had somebody come in today to work on decorating our house, and I feel so good.
Wait a second, what happened?
Yeah, delegating that to somebody else.
Oh, is that what that lady was? No. All right. Okay, I guess we're going to get some improvements at the house.
Yes, we are. And it's not going to waste all of my time doing it.
That's smart, Kim.
Yeah.
So
in the end, I think we'll save time and money.
Which is what we want you to feel when you start working with us. You're saving time and money. It's a win-win.
Absolutely, because the money you save may be the mistakes you don't make.
Oh, I like that. We should put that on the website somewhere, like a tagline. I got to remember that. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this podcast and write that down so that I can remember to put that on the website.
Maybe make it the cliffhanger or the intro.
That's right.
So we realize when scary news comes out that it can leave some people concerned, shocked, worried. insert whatever. And this causes, I was reading an article that say this can cause like financial trauma.
Yeah, anxiety for sure.
And you just want to get away from it. But really know that that's where we come in. Mm-hmm. And we really want to be there for you.
Right. So if you're in transition, if you've been affected by the Silicon Valley Bank situation, or if you just want to have a conversation with someone about your own particular situation, I think the message here is that we're here and we're available and we'd love to talk to you. So at the end of every podcast, we suggest you reach out to us. You can reach out directly. My email is victor@techgrowthfinancial.com. And included with that long list of show notes that is apparently pointing to every podcast we've ever recorded, there's a contact us button. And in doing that, you'll have direct access to be able to schedule some time, 15 minutes, half an hour. There's no obligation, certainly no fee. It's really just a chat to find out what's concerning you and how we might be able to help.
So just remember, we're approachable.
Yeah, that's important. And we thank you for listening, and hopefully you weren't too impacted by this. But like we said, if you are, we're here. So thanks for listening to the Tech Girl Financial Podcast, and we hope to talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future shows, please send an email to victor@techgirlfinancial.com or join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag AskTGF. We also encourage you to follow us on the Tech Girl Financial page on Facebook and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Tech Girl Financial and Cambridge Investment Research, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Discussions in the show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions.